Good afternoon, Pitch Talk. This is your boy, Matty Ice, live after the Copenhagen versus Manchester United Champions League. And I'm here to tell you why I do not believe Ten Hag will survive at Manchester United. This is not a Ten Hag out video by any means. I was a firm believer that Ten Hag was the right man for the job. And I do believe that he has qualities to help this Manchester United team. But I am seeing three specific things, which we'll talk about in great length today, as to why I don't believe he will be successful at United. And we're going to start off this video by first addressing his transfers. Okay. I think that is one of the first areas we need to look at with Ten Hag that is really a concerning area. So let's talk about some of these transfers, right? Starting off, I think it's really important to start off with the Onana situation. Now, very controversial. The goalkeeper situation at United has been, if you have been at United for a long time, you understand that playing goalkeeper at United is not as straightforward as playing goalkeeper at any other club. It's a very similar situation to, for example, what Real Madrid have gone through before Casillas, right? And recently have gone through with Lunin and Courtois. Playing goalkeeper at United is rather challenging because you have certain expectations of, one, being the best in the world, and two, playing for a team that has a very volatile, yes, volatile is the correct word, fan base. And so the reactions to the result are almost are expected in each fan base. And that's not to say that other fan bases are not volatile in their reactions of when the team wins or loses, but specifically Madridistas and United fans have been accused of being extremely volatile. And so the first signing that I think is important to talk is the signing of Andre Onana. And, Andre Onana, again, comes from the Ten Hag system, right? Played with him at Ajax. So there has been some frustrations of continuity between the transfers that Ten Hag does and their experience having played with him. Now, I think this is one of the strengths of Ten Hag is he actually understands that player power at United has been in the past a serious problem. And so in order to combat that, right, you usually bring people that you've played with, right, who respect you and who like the style of soccer that you play, your management style, your communication approach, things of that nature. And so it's just like in business, right? Whenever a company acquires another portfolio company, what's the first thing that happens, or what happens when a CEO comes in, a new CEO? He usually brings his or her management team. So this isn't dissimilar to what happens in the real world. So I applaud Ten Hag, for taking that approach, because it's an approach that really we would all take. In my coaching experience, I've always kind of favored my team, bring in my own team, or bring in my own players, bring in my own assistant coach, bring in my own trainers, etc. Because that's been it. You have expectations and you know what they're going to deliver, right? And with the Onana transfer, the expectation from us fans was we were going to play more with the ball on our feet. The distribution was going to improve. We were going to have the Ederson or Allison conversation. And certainly Onana has the skill sets to do that, right? The problem I see is we don't have necessarily the back line to play that way. And in order to have that system gel, if you analyze what Liverpool did, what Manchester City did, it took them years to get that. It took them minimum 2 years to get that approach to play. So your immediate future was going to be shell-shocked. So this is certainly not a message to Onana that he cannot play at this level. I certainly think he has the charisma, and I certainly think he has the skill set to play at this level. However, Coming in as the number one goalkeeper the way he did, we see a similar thing that happened when we brought in David De Gea. What needs to happen at a team like Real Madrid or like Manchester United is you need to have a very strong number two that eventually can become a number one. The situation that we had with David De Gea and Romero was actually probably one of our better goalkeeping eras in the sense of we had a plan in place. And Romero, despite his limitations, he had limitations in certain departments. You understood what you got out of him, and Romero was a what I would call not a perfect number one, but better than a backup goalkeeper. And so you understood the logic, the plan, right, that United was undertaking. Getting rid of David De Gea, the Golden Glove winner, as well as one of the leaders in that locker room, was a huge mistake for United. And again, we are seeing that live. Onana is not necessarily at fault for any of the goals, but if there is 100% certainty that with David De Gea in goal right now, we are conceding less goals. I don't care if you're not a De Gea fan. If you cannot bring yourself to that realization that De Gea made game after game unrealistic saves, then I would love to have a conversation with those individuals about what goalkeeper you see being able to resolve this. Now, if the answer is, oh, well, let's just go get Allison. Well, yeah, let's call Liverpool and see if Allison wants to come to Manchester. Sure. Let's live in that FIFA or career mode, whatever game you're playing, and let's have that fantasy conversation. But if we want to have a real conversation, I don't see where the goalkeeper is because David De Gea is a reflex goalkeeper. Onana is a possession-based goalkeeper. So you have what essentially Onana would be top 5 in possession. And in reflex, David De Gea was top 5 as well. So where's that middle ground? Some people would like to see the backup goalkeeper. I'm really interested in Bayadir, but again, this demonstrates Ten Hag's lack of understanding for his own team and the limitations of his own team. Had we gotten maybe a more development option, but in the Onana style, I would have said, man, this is great. We're phasing out De Gea, which, by the way, for even us De Gea fans like myself, we are very cognizant that De Gea needed to be phased out of the team long term to achieve the vision of Ten Hag philosophy. Of course, we needed a goalkeeper to be more pragmatic on the ball, but to have such a cut and dry approach, well, we're seeing the effects right now. So for that, it's almost a naivete from Ten Hag to believe that a goalkeeper could just come in, even of Onana's status, and change this. And because of this now, all of the, we should get Courtois or we should get whoever you think, Donnarumma, Mike Maignan, whatever goalkeeper you believe is the top at this point, I will argue with any of you just because of the history of what we've seen. Onana went to a Champions League final and we bought him. He went to a Champions League final, was instrumental for Inter. Okay. I will tell you this right now. You can take this to the bank. Any goalkeeper you bring to Manchester United will struggle their first season. It is 100% going to happen. The expectations are too high, and the style of play that we need a goalkeeper who can make the incredible. We need a goalkeeper who can distribute. We need a leader at the back. We need a vocal person. We need somebody who's good with crosses. That's too much to handle. Too much to handle. So I think that's the first step. The second bad transfer that I look at with Ten Hag, and that I ask myself the question, and I think a lot of us fans really want to know why, is the Mason Mount. Mason Mount was our first transfer this offseason. And you would think your first transfer would be your priority signing. It just kind of makes sense, right? In a company, where do you invest first? You usually invest in the priority or the things that are most concerning. So, with that in mind, the same logic should apply. Even furthering that logic is the fact that we gave Mason Mount very quickly after we signed him the most iconic number in Manchester United history, meaning that we expected to sell jerseys. So we expected this to not only be an operational signing, so an on the field improvement, but we also expected this to be a financially lucrative deal. On top of that, the man fit the younger. We want to make United younger. There has been an emphasis in investing in younger players. Mason Mount was 24, and he happens to be English, which is very helpful for a team located in England to have the future set of stars for England. When Manchester United was most successful, the majority of good English talent played for Manchester United. I don't think that's a coincidence by any means. Now, that's not to say we should only invest in English talent. I believe that, in today's day and age, soccer is such a global institution now that really, if your team has all different players from all different continents and countries, I think that's a true representation of kind of our modern society. And even the international games, you look now, I mean, you can't, the German team, the French team, the American team, even starting, you'll see players who have played for other foreign countries in the U21 ranks, and that happens everywhere. So the question that I have is, what is the long-term vision for Mason Mount, right? Is Mason Mount a number 8? Is Mason Mount a number 6? Is Mason Mount a left winger? Is Mason Mount a number 10? And, we all may have different opinions on that. And I don't think there's a wrong opinion, right? Mason Mount has certainly played in all 4 of those positions. I think you could probably make the argument that he's better off either as an 8, a 10, or a left winger versus a 6. But regardless, he is a versatile player. Versatility is very, very helpful in any team, but you do need to have a specialization for a team like Manchester United, who is struggling at the moment, to say the least. What is the long-term vision for Mason Mount? And I don't think that's very clear. And Mason Mount coming off the bench, playing 15 minutes or even 30 minutes a game, is a really bad look for the number 7 and also for Ten Hag's first signing. So again, I see a transfer where I don't see a lot of clarity. And that is a pretty big emphasis for Ten Hag, because it was very clear that this was a Ten Hag signing. He wanted him before he went to Vitesse when Ten Hag was at Utrecht. And, Mason Mount has been a very productive player for Chelsea. So this is not to say that this is a bad player by any means. I think having a Mason Mount on your bench, I think, makes you strong. But Manchester United are in need of first team players. So fixing the bench is certainly worthwhile. But I believe you have to fix the starting 11 before you fix the bench. So again, I come back to this idea of having a younger Onana, not necessarily Onana, but another goalkeeper that can play with his feet, who's ascending, right? And learning from De Gea would have been great. Mason Mount, if you think, I tend to think that Mason Mount at the 10 is probably a very good option. But our best player plays the 10, which is Bruno Fernandes. So does that make Mason Mount the replacement for Bruno Fernandes? If so, that's a great value add, but it doesn't help the starting 11. And again, we've taken players out of the starting 11 to accommodate Mason Mount early in the season, and we've seen the same thing with the Andre Onana situation. So again, I find this confusing. The next player I want to talk about is just an overspending like there is no tomorrow, and that's the transfer of Anthony. Anthony is a very limited player. I don't think there are Anthony fans out there who will disagree with that statement. If so, Please educate me as to why he's not limited. He's very predominantly one-footed. And while I do think one of the strengths of Anthony is his defense, he does play very good defense, and him and Spider could be something very interesting. He's a very narrow player. He's not a very good crosser of the ball unless he's cutting inside, right? So from the right side, he's cutting on his left foot. How does that cross go? Well, you guys have played the game long enough to know how that cross goes, and it's a little bit hard. It's much harder for our attackers to get on the end of that. So a very limited player, and then we overspend by 90 million for Anthony is so ridiculous. It borders. I mean, the argument has to be made. What is the most ridiculous transfer in the Manchester United history between Maguire and Anthony? And it's an argument. It's a discussion I would love to have with anyone, because I do think those two are absolutely mind-boggling. And there's been worse transfers than those two. That's not what the conversation is about. The conversation is about the most ludicrous transfer fee we've ever paid for the output. There have definitely been worse players than both of those two at Manchester United, but to pay that kind of money, it severely limits your ability to invest in other areas. And again, this is a team that needs first team investment. So spending 90 on a player like Anthony seems a bit out of the reach, right? Especially when you have players who can play that right wing spot. I'm thinking of Nkunku, I'm thinking of Diaby, and there's several others who were closer to the 50 million range. And could have gone into that slot. Again, another player with Ten Hag familiarity. So it's easy to criticize these signings because Ten Hag has a relationship with these individuals. And that's not to say that Anthony's not going to come good because he's 22, but in the short term, having a guy maybe like $40 million less, the same age, and who can Doku, great example, right? The Belgium sensation at Manchester City costs half of that. And you're thinking, man, maybe somebody who could have learned from the previous left wingers, right? That transition would have been much easier. The expectation on Anthony is here, and his price tag is here, but his output is here. It does not match. And this is when the criticism can really affect a player, and it certainly has, right? And that's not even including the off-the-field situation with Anthony. So again, another area where you're thinking, man, that's really shocking. The last one I really want to talk about, and there's others, right? We've bought other players, is really the question of Amrabat, right? Again, a player that worked with Ten Hag at Utrecht. But the downfall of Sofyan Amrabat has always been the negative on every profile is his lack of, he's not an athlete. He's a very physical individual. He's very good at passing from the back. He's a very technical player. You can watch him. Even there's videos of him off the field. He is very good with his feet. And I think he has the opportunity to get better, but he's certainly not a super athlete in the field, in the middle of the park. A player that I really wanted was actually Onana from Everton. I think a player like that, a Decore out of Crystal Palace, a player with a lot of just an athlete in the middle of the park would have been incredibly helpful to Manchester United, right? A Kone out of Borussia, a Fofana out of Monaco. There's definitely a lot of players out there who are athletes out of the back to help Casemiro with the age that's coming and whatnot. And I understand Casemiro likes to play a little bit higher on the field, so having somebody a little bit further back, the De Jong who can control the ball, I get that. But I think it was a mistake. I would not have gone that approach had I been the decision maker. I'm not the decision maker. I'm not paid to make those big decisions at United. So this was kind of this. I expected this out of Ten Hag, But again, we're seeing Amrabat, he's not able to run up and down the field. That's where he struggles tremendously. His physicality, he's strong, but his legs are, and as he gets older, he's only going to lose that combination. So again, I don't see a transfer where the long-term vision is. And to even further this point, we haven't even bought Amrabat. We've loaned him with an option to buy. So that just goes to show you the whether that was a Ten Hag decision, whether that was a board decision, that does go to show you the uncertainty that we have with his position. So that's really kind of my comprehensive look at the transfers. There are others, right? Martinez, Varane, Casemiro. I mean, definitely there are others to talk about, but those four really stand out to me. And we haven't even talked about the flip side of players who were supposed to be leaving the club, who Ten Hag was really pushing out last season, and now are starting the last four games. And arguably, you could argue that McTominay has been one of our best midfielders this season, and it's no mystery that McTominay was on the selling block this past season, off season. That is without a doubt true, as well as Harry Maguire, and I'm sure some others. So I think Ten Hag will not succeed at Manchester United. Firstly, my first bullet point, because his transfer decision making has been poor and has not been clear. The identity of what he wants has not been clear. The second area where I think Ten Hag has struggled in, and reasoning as to why he will not be successful at Manchester United, is player disputes. It's no surprise that in his first season, he got in a player dispute with arguably one of the greatest players to ever play for Manchester United, which is Cristiano Ronaldo. Also happened to be our top goal scorer the season before. Now, Ten Hag has routinely said that he cannot play the same style as he played with Ajax at Manchester United. My concern here is the reasons why myself and so many others wanted Ten Hag was because of his system of play at Ajax. And rightfully so. This is a team that went to the quarterfinals in the Champions League and played some of the most attractive football that we've seen. And Ajax has routinely played great football. So the encouragement there was United have oftentimes been criticized of not playing beautiful soccer or football, but getting results. Now, imagine being able, and that has been the criticism for a team like Liverpool for years. They wanted to play beautiful soccer, right? Barcelona is another team. They want to play beautiful soccer. They want to win that way. But there are games where you can't play that type of soccer, and you still need to get a result because you have a global fan base who expects and demands trophies, not wins, trophies. That's what we're talking about. At the end of the day, Manchester United is about winning trophies. That is why we fell in love with this club. That is why we support this club. We have not been winning major trophies since 2013, guys. Okay? It is 2023. It took Liverpool 30 years. We are on track to hit those 30 years as we speak. Okay? We have 20 more years to go. Okay? So the problems with these player disputes is they're now being, first of all, we've had now two of them public with the Jadon Sancho this year. So now every year we have a player dispute. We saw how the Ronaldo dispute ended. It was incredibly ugly. I certainly think there was opportunity to do that better from both sides. I don't think it was handled well by either side. But again, losing Ronaldo for nothing, essentially, and not replacing him with a striker, we saw what happened. And don't tell me about Weghorst, because that is not a striker of even the bench quality at Manchester United. I'm sorry, and I know he's having a decent season at he's at Schalke, Wolfsburg, Hoffenheim. He's at one of those clubs in Germany. And doing decent. But again, Jadon Sancho, a dispute, right? Last week, Marcus Rashford celebrates his birthday. Public dispute between the two, or a reprimand. Let's not call it a dispute. I certainly read the article where Rashford was upset with the United Stand about putting clickbait articles on their platform, and I certainly do not have the ins and outs. So I will not say that there is a dispute when I do not know that for certain. But it was publicly said that Ten Hag had a disciplinary discussion with Rashford about him going out. And again, I gotta say I'm on Rashford's side on this. Rashford has not been having a good season. He's the first one who is cognizant of that. I can assure you, Rashford is very well aware of his performances and how they're not good. The fans have been pretty vocal about it, me included. And I don't think that Rashford planning a birthday party the night after Manchester City absolutely destroys us is a problem, because he was in training the next day. I'm sure he's been training very well. I'm sure he's been putting a lot of extra work in order to mitigate some of his poor performances. So what a player does off the field is none of my concern, none whatsoever. As long as that player is committed to the team, performing for the team, and putting his effort for the team, I really couldn't care less, to be brutally honest. And in the chat, you guys will probably disagree with that, and that's okay. That's why we're here. We're here to discuss differences of opinion. But there is now a growing sentiment that there is an issue now with Raphael Varane, and maybe there isn't. But it's certainly there certainly is a question for us United fans to ask: is why is Varane on the bench? Is it an injury related? Is it a tactical? And I know Ten Hag has said previously that it's tactical, but I think we deserve a little bit bigger explanation. It's just tactical. Well, what portion is tactical? Is Varane worse in the air than Maguire? Is it that we want to play a high block versus a low block? Is Maguire better at the high block than the low? Again, not an expert in any of this, but I have my own opinion, and it would be nice to understand and hear the thought process right behind those things. Otherwise, it opens the door to these very questions that the fans have. And so I think these player disputes, and again, Ten Hag had them at Ajax. This is not something that we did not know when we hired Ten Hag. I can assure you, if you do a comprehensive assessment of Ten Hag's past at Ajax, you will see that he had major falling outs with players. Okay, the one that stands out for me is Noah Lang, but this is not news to any United fan. So again, if we knew this was an issue and now we're seeing it happening more and more, my concern is this is a style. This is his coaching. And if so, is this going to continue? Because if it is going to continue, which there's certainly no indication that it'll stop, then we are going to lose quality players, and we are going to lose Ten Hag is potentially going to lose the dressing room, which will cause him to be unsuccessful at Manchester United. So that is our second bullet point. So recap so far, we've talked about the failed transfers that have been proven to be Ten Hag's decisions. And the second that we have just spoken about is the fact that Ten Hag has had player controversies. The third area where I think Ten Hag the reason why he will not be successful as Manchester United is some of his tactical in-game substitutions. Okay, so I'll start off, there are two examples really that really are rather interesting to me, and I believe highlight a bit of stubbornness, which I'm okay with as a manager. I think stubbornness can be a very attractive feature, especially in the sense that it promotes your value system. It highlights your value system to others. And you are the coach. You are paid to make these decisions. You'll make wrong decisions at times. Sir Alex Ferguson certainly made some wrong decisions. And if we had the pleasure of speaking with him, which will never happen, but I would love to speak to that man, and really pick his brain, not only as an educator, but as a soccer coach or football coach, he would be the first to admit that he made mistakes. And we as fans know what those mistakes were. But one of the things that I keep routinely seeing is motivating. How do you motivate your players? Now, these are multimillionaires. So people in the chat are going to say, Kevin, how do you motivate a multimillionaire? Well, you have to motivate them in different ways. It's not rah 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 rah. You got it. You know, it's. I motivate my solar kids differently than how I would motivate a multimillionaire playing for Manchester United. That's self-evident, right? But we rewarded. I'll give you the first example: Marcus Rashford and Alejandro Garnacho. Okay. It's no surprise Marcus Rashford had a fantastic season last year. In fact, without Marcus Rashford last year, I would argue we would have never achieved some of the achievements that we did, which was going to 2 finals, winning 1 trophy, finishing top 4, and going in the Champions League. Remarkable season for a first-year coach, undergoing some of the player problems and first-year transfer windows, and as well as a potential acquisition from outside investors. Ten Haag, without a doubt, overachieved last season, and it's a reason why he is here with us and coaching our team. But you have a player who has scored 1 goal and just recently, like today, gets a questionable red card, right? It will now be out 3 games, if not minimum 2 games. Has been having a bad season. We continue to put Rashford out, putting him on the right, on the left. We continue to leave him out there. We take Højlund out every game. We put him as the striker. He is clearly struggling. And what do we have? We have a young talent who we just signed to a new contract as well, who, whenever he comes on the field, is dynamic. I mean, Alejandro Garnacho is one of the most exciting talents at Manchester United in the last 15 years, okay? It is undeniable. The kid has speed. He's trained with some of the best players. He's seen how some of these guys train. It is very exciting to be a Manchester United fan and to see this young kid develop in front of our eyes. And you'll see the mistakes, the lack of tracking back at times. He doesn't hold the ball particularly well, but his vision is getting better in the final third. His crossing has improved. There is substantial development that we're seeing from Garnacho. And the way I would motivate a multimillionaire is Rashford is our star player. Rashford needs to play. But if he isn't producing on the field, and Alejandro Garnacho, a young guy, okay, from outside, by the way, it helps that Rashford is a Mancunian, okay, is taking minutes away from Rashford. I promise you, Marcus Rashford is a consummate professional. He will put in the work, and you will see a reaction from Marcus Rashford. 100%. Okay. There is not a single international player of Marcus Rashford's ability and confidence that would be satisfied with playing 20 minutes less, okay, because of a 19-year-old Argentinian kid who is, making mistakes as well, but he's dynamic. He's bringing in some fire. That is how you motivate a guy like Marcus Rashford. That is how you get our star player, who is Marcus Rashford. I do not care if you do not like him. I do not care if you think he's limited. I will be the first person to tell you I think he's limited. But Marcus Rashford is the only player on that team who has proven he can score 20 goals. That's a fact. That's not an opinion, ladies and gentlemen. He is the only player on the Manchester United team, besides Bruno Fernandes with the penalty kicks, who can have 20 goals a season. And guess what our biggest problem was last year? It was goals. So you need to find a way to motivate Marcus Rashford and continuing to play him every single minute of the game, putting him in every position to accommodate, the other team. What have we had? we have one of our star players struggling. And what do we see? Our team is struggling. It's no coincidence, guys. We need to address this issue. It is something that has plagued Manchester United for the last year, and it is the reality of the situation. Without output from Marcus Rashford, you will have limited output from Manchester United. It's clear, guys. The second substitution that I'd like to talk about is Højlund. Højlund is a striker of extreme talent. We've seen it. We've seen it today. We've seen him. He is one of the top goal scorers in the Champions League. He's 20 years old. He has so much to learn. He's making mistakes. He's strong. He's doing this. Great. I love what I'm seeing out of Højlund. I'm very excited for the future with him. But why is Højlund every single game the first person to be subbed? Okay. And I don't have the answer. I do not have the answer. But I do know this. What position is the most limited in terms of who can play in the position? Okay. I understand goalkeeper, there's probably only two. So let's not put that into contention. But center backs, right? We have a multitude of players who can play center backs, right? Let's go. Luke Shaw, Raphael Varane, Lindelof, Maguire, Johnny Evans, right? That's five. Center mids. Who can play center mids? McTominay, Mason Mount, right? Amrabat, Eriksen. Okay. Boom. On the wings, we have multiple players who can play on the wings. On the outside backs, what is a position that we really are limited in, right? It's the striker. It's the striker position. Now, the only reason I can think of why we are limited, Højlund, and in return, Anthony Martial, is due to injury concerns. And I believe that's valid, but we have to find a better solution there. Because again, right, we are seeing an ascending player growing in front of our eyes, which is Højlund. But in return, we are also seeing our star player, Marcus Rashford, struggling. And they happen to be playing a very similar position. We oftentimes slide Marcus Rashford in that hole. Okay. I don't think he's a good striker with his back turned to goal. I definitely think he's much better playing off the wing. But we're trying to fit. There's an expression, right? Round pegs in square holes. Okay. It's not ideal. And I would really question Ten Haag about doing this. We've seen some weird substitutions that don't make sense. And he is, instead of being proactive in his substitutions, I see Ten Haag as being incredibly reactive. How many times do we get a goal scored and immediately, boom, Eriksen goes out, Amrabat comes in, right? Or we see a Garnacho will come out and, a Martial comes in, we do a double striker. It is, the substitutions have to be questioned. And I will tell you, it's probably one of the things that Sir Alex Ferguson did the best that goes underrated. Nobody talks about it. But Alex Ferguson's substitutions were typically like, you would think they were wrong, and he didn't always deliver. That's unfair. But he delivered most times. And I think Ten Hag substitutions need work. I do think that's something that as a coach you can improve on. I know that's for me, a weakness of mine and my coaching aspect is my substitutions weren't always as effective as I thought they would be. So that was a weakness of mine. But at this level, I think it's critical that we fix that. And I think that will be an issue for Ten Hag moving forward. And I do think that is the third and final reason why Ten Hag will not be successful at Manchester United. Now, again, I preface this video. This is not a Ten Hag out. I do not believe that we should fire Ten Hag at this moment in time for a number of reasons. But one of them is I don't see an alternative out there that we can get middle of the season. I think if there is a new ownership change, I think they will want their own man. I'm really curious. Obviously, we won't know this. I know there's been rumors of this and that. The Sir Ratcliffe really loves Ten Hag. I don't know. Again, I don't like to speculate on things that we don't know. But it's these are interesting times because it's looking right now like Manchester United will be out of the Champions League, and so Manchester United out of the Champions League, not looking like they will not be winning the EFL Cup. It's not looking like they will finish top four. So is Ten Hag? This is a trophyless season. It is November 8th. That is pretty concerning for a team of our stature. And then furthermore, no Champions League this season, no trophies, and losing the players that we're going to lose. Can we compete in the transfer market and get better targets? Do we trust Ten Hag to get better targets? These are all very important questions that we need to ask ourselves. And so I wish nothing but the best for our team, for our coaches, for Ten Hag. This is, again, no indication of firing Ten Hag or whatnot, but I am a bit fearful. This is a fearful video of what's to come for Ten Hag and Manchester United. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll tune in next time with a new video. We may even look at some potential options. I think that would be a lot of fun. And yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in. Love you guys and have a great night. Bye-bye.